After 2 decades of lifting and starting out looking a little bit like this, I learned one thing. Most people can gain weight without gaining much muscle, and they don't realize it until they've wasted months. They eat too much, overcomplicate their training, and chase things that don't matter. So let me show you the training split I'd use, how quickly I'd gain, and what I'd track to stay lean whilst building muscle. And the one thing I care about most to guarantee growth's happening, because if that's not improving, I don't care what the scale says. After coaching loads of people and spending 2 decades in the gym, I've realized something. Most people don't have a muscle building problem, they have a structure problem. They spend months looking for the perfect workout, the perfect exercise, the perfect diet, and this just means they're never sticking to anything long enough to see meaningful progress. And that's why I created my free build guide, because if your goal is to build muscle while staying lean, you need more than just some random tips from social media. Inside you'll find a complete 12-week training program with a calorie calculator and adjuster, as well as nutritional and training guidance. The link is in the description. It's completely free and it will take 30 seconds to download. But let's talk about the biggest mistake I see people making when they're trying to build muscle. Most bulks fail because people think the faster the scale goes up, the more muscle you're building. But muscle growth is a really slow process. You're gaining grams of muscle per week. So if the scale is shooting up by kilograms, it's going to be mostly fat. Most people are far too aggressive with it and they use it as a bit of an excuse to go off the rails, have quite a few untracked meals. And it actually leads to more problems than it's worth. It makes visual progress a lot more difficult to spot because the muscle is covered under that layer of fluff. People can start to hit a bit of an appetite ceiling, so it just feels like you're having to force down every single meal. And it can actually make you feel quite lethargic as well, which has knock-on impacts on your performance. And probably the worst part is you're going to have to cut for longer afterwards to see the results, which is stressful, and you're going to risk some muscle loss that way. And all for what? Because you're not actually building muscle any faster. So a sweet spot I like to use is around 1% of your body weight gained per month. I'd also keep an eye on your waist measurement too. So try not to let that go much above 2 centimeters per month. If it's higher than that or consistently hitting 2 centimeters, it's a sign that your surplus is a little bit too high and might need to be brought down a bit. I'd also be keeping an eye on progress photos too, just to make sure that you're keeping a decent level of condition. And what that's going to do is keep you in a productive body fat range. Unfortunately, when we are gaining, we are going to gain some body fat, but that's not a bad thing. Body fat can help us with our performance, but we don't want it to breach our upper limit, because that's when we have all those problems with feeling lethargic, appetite, and all that kind of stuff. It's the same as when we're cutting and we dip below our body fat percentage that we are happy at. The body starts to tell us we're really hungry, we're tired, and all that kind of stuff. So as an example, if you weigh 80 kilos, you should be looking to gain 0.6 to 0.8 kilograms per month as an average. But calories are only half the story. Body weight alone doesn't tell you that muscle is being built. So let's talk training and consistency, because this is where people overcomplicate things and they don't do what they need to do to grow. So training splits. And I think the key thing here is you can be consistent with it. So for me, I just feel like most people do best with a 4-day per week split. It fits around most people's lifestyles. It gives a good balance between stimulus and recovery, and there's plenty of room in there for volume. I've actually made a video breaking down exactly how you find the perfect training split for you, but let's keep focused on the gaining phase for now. Another reason that I like the 4-day split is it allows us to train muscle groups twice per week, so we can train them more frequently, but also when they're fresher and they can perform better, which is going to equal more growth overall. But instead of sticking to something simple, people have to overcomplicate everything. And I'm not blaming anyone, because there is a lot of social media confusion, but the less time you can spend searching for the perfect exercises or changing your plan every 5 minutes, the more gains you're going to be making. But even if calories and training are on point, there's still one thing that tells me whether muscle growth is actually happening. Now, here's a couple of common questions people ask. How do I know when to increase my calories and by how much? And that is why I created a calorie adjuster inside my free build guide, which is going to remove all of that guesswork for you. It's going to tell you when you need to increase your calories and by how much. The link is in the description. It's 30 seconds to download. Which brings us back to that one super important thing. Remember that I mentioned at the start of the video? Well, that one thing is your training performance. So why does training performance matter so much? And it's because muscle growth is an adaptation. It is a response to a stress that we place on the body. And without continuing to make progress week on week, we're never going to grow. So the types of improvements that I'd be looking for are an increase in reps, and that doesn't have to be across every single set. If you've got 3 sets in and you only add 1 extra rep that week, that is still a progression. Then there's adding weight, but if you are gonna add weight, make sure you try to match the reps from the previous week. That doesn't mean that you fail if you don't, it just gives you something to aim for. But if you're matching the reps from the previous week and adding load, that's a good sign you've created the adaptation, you've grown basically. And these are a couple of things that people don't really see as progress, but they definitely are. And that's better execution or better control. If you are taking more ownership of the load that you're lifting, if you're maybe getting deeper, more of a stretch, if you're getting a better contraction, things like that, that is a sign of progression as well, even if your load or your reps didn't improve. So remember when I said that body weight alone doesn't tell us that you're building muscle? If body weight is going up, but your performance isn't, then this could be a sign of excess fat gain. There might be some recovery issues happening, so you might need to look at reducing your volume, or it might even be an issue at all. It is fine to match reps if you are still training within that same level of intensity. So that 2 to 3 reps away from failure, if you're doing that, but the reps were the same or your performance hasn't gone up for a few weeks, it's just that you haven't earned that adaptation yet and you haven't built the muscle. Sometimes it takes time, especially if you've been lifting a bit longer. So here is my lean gaining checklist. So from a body weight perspective, you want to make sure that that is going up around about 1% per month. Then you need to make sure that your waist isn't exploding. So around about 1 to 2 centimeters per month is probably okay. If it's consistently a bit higher than that, then it's a sign that the surplus is too high and you might need to reduce it. And then you want to be seeing a gradual upward trend in your performance. That doesn't necessarily mean every single week, but over, a couple of weeks to months, you should be seeing an upward trend across all of your lifts. And if all 3 of those things are checking out, you are more than likely gaining muscle. I really wish I had these videos when I first started because I definitely would have made more progress. But if I could rewind the clocks and give myself a bit of advice, it would be to stop chasing weight gain, stop looking for the perfect program that doesn't exist, focus on your training performance and stay patient. Building muscle while staying lean isn't about finding some secret. It's about controlling the things that actually matter. Gain weight slowly, train consistently, track your performance and stay in it long enough to actually see the process work. If you'd like the exact 4-day split with the calorie adjuster that I mentioned throughout the video, then the link is in the description for the free 12-week build guide. And now that you know how I would approach a gaining phase, the next question is how should you structure your training? And that is exactly what I cover in this video here. And if your goal is building the absolute best physique possible, then make sure you're subscribed because every single video in this channel is designed to do just that.